Thank you very much. Good afternoon and welcome to the Camden Opera House. It's great that you're here. It's great to all the folks that are watching this on Facebook streaming at home. Thank you for that. And we've had a great fall, a successful and healthy fall. And as you can see, we've got everybody spaced, and we intend to keep doing that. We're really following the main state guidelines. And we're wearing masks, and we thank you all for wearing your masks as well. We have some things coming up, which I'll talk about briefly. Next Friday, we have Songs for Hope. 3 wonderful singer-songwriters will be playing. It's a stream-only show, so don't come, but watch it on Facebook. And it's a benefit for New Hope for Women, so they'll be obviously accepting donations, and you'll hear about how to do that. So that's a really important show. And then the following Friday, we have Tom Luther. Tom has played here. He's a jazz pianist and a composer, and he's bringing a group in to play some really original new music, which with 45 people here should be really kind of wild. So that's on the 25th. I'd like to thank a lot of people. Certainly Dave Morrison for putting this all together with his wonderful team, Juniper, the tech person, Beth, who has been here running these shows, and it's really been a terrific thing to have some live entertainment back in town. Today, we have 2 amazing things. As a kid who grew up both listening to, going to concerts, and playing rock and roll, today is right up my alley. First off is somebody we all know and love, Dave Morrison, who will be reading from his poetry book, Clubland. Dave was a rocker, an original rocker, both in Boston area and in New York. Moved up here and sort of settled down. Anyway, he, as you know, he's had 15 books out. He's a wonderful poet, and he'll be reading from Clubland today. And then second, and there's not going to be an intermission, so stay in your seats. It's an hour total. We have Ellen Sander, and I just got done reading her book, Trips. It's cool. It's online if you want to buy it. It's a great history of rock and roll, starting with sort of observations from the 50s, but she was there at the beginning. She was at the Fillmore, she was out west, she was at Woodstock, she was at Monterey Pop, and her anecdotes, her critiques, her writings are fantastic. So I recommend the book, and I also recommend, you'll see here in about a half an hour. As has been said of the book, it's a memoir, it's a source book, and it's a love letter to rock and roll. So if you like rock and roll as much as I do, you're going to love today. So without further ado, Dave Morrison.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, everybody. It's great to see you. I grew up as a kid reading everything I could get my hands on about rock and roll. I read Crawdaddy and Cream and Hit Parader and Rolling Stone and Guitar Player. And eventually it occurred to me that while there is a lot of books written by and about rock stars, there were not books written about just the workaday rock and roll players. You know, the men and women who drive the van and hump the gear and have to get up for work on Monday. And there were certainly none that were written as sonnets or sestinas or triolets. So I saw my opening, and now there is one. So all the stories are true, for better or worse. They're in roughly chronological order. And I would like to start with a poem about my very first club gig. I was 17 years old. I was officially a senior in high school. It's called Long Way to the Top. Laconia Lounge in Lowell, Mass. Cross-dressers, thugs, and working stiffs. An ancient waitress who could kick your ass. the smell of pine sol, and beer and piss. Two fat brothers owned the place, shoulder holsters, Hawaiian shirts, Telly and Louie, but not to their face. They called you hey, you called them sir. Jukebox, cigarette machine, one window the size of a postage stamp. Naugahyde booths that won't come clean, tattered carpet that's always damp. Locals bark bizarre requests, Zappa, Bowie, ELO. 7 minutes between each set. You don't dare go to the can alone. The band got fired after 2 nights of a 5-night gig, a punch in the gut. The agent said, it's a stepping stone, but he never said to what. This, like all good poems, is very short and is dedicated to Bunratty's in Allston, Mass. It's called Come On. She pierced his ear in the ladies' room, a pin sterilized with Tanqueray. Through the wall, the band was all crash and boom. It was just another Saturday. But a Saturday night should not be missed. These moments just don't last that long. She smiled and grabbed him by his wrist. Come on, she said. I love this song. So the songs in this, Freudian slip, the poems in this particular collection are of a certain time and place, and that place is Boston. But the truth is, it could be anywhere. It could be any city, large or small, where there's clubs and bands and young people who need to get out. This is called Walking Home. The morning traffic jams up Storrow Drive like thoroughbreds bunched up along the rail. Sun gilds the buildings on the Cambridge side. Charles River hosts no boat, no shell, no sail. He runs the gauntlet, makes it through alive, and having crossed, then vaults over the rail. He can't remember where the party was, even though he only barely left. The crisp air kills the remnants of his buzz. He pats his pockets for his cigarettes. Home to Allston, clean up quick, because this week he works the 8 a.m. shift. The girl he likes is a singer in a band. Her bangs almost completely hide her eyes. They talked a lot at gigs, and so he planned to show up at the party. Hey, surprise. And drink and dance and maybe take her hand and kiss her as the sun began to rise. But when he got there, she had disappeared, doing lines with the owner of the bar. The bathtub had been filled with ice and beer. Someone brought out a battered old guitar. When she came back, she whispered in his ear, "Can you loan me $10 to get a car?" So she didn't kiss his mouth, just his cheek in sisterly gratitude, and off she went. They didn't touch. They didn't hardly speak. And now his own cab money has been spent. He'll probably see her at the gig next week. At least he will be in his element. The morning traffic jams up Storrow Drive like thoroughbreds bunched up along the rail. Sun gilds the buildings on the Cambridge side. Charles River hosts no boat, no shell, no sail. All in all, it's good to be alive. It's good to try. It's even good to fail. So, in this book, there are archetypes, sort of characters that you see in any area. So this is one of them. This poem is called The Manager, and I would note that this is the band manager as opposed to the club manager. The manager. He told us he'd run lights for ELO. Eyes bright, he listed all his famous friends. And Coke, he always had a stash of Coke to get things done and help tie up loose ends. Don't leave home without it, was his joke. As far as we could tell, he never did. He had a dozen schemes ready to go, and a dancer girlfriend, practically a kid. He lined up big-time gigs in concert halls, and even if a lot of them fell through, the sense of possibility felt real. Young and hungry, we swore we would do anything it took to close the deal, to climb the ladder out of local bars, to show we had the talent and the balls to prove that we deserved to become stars. But pretty soon the cracks began to show. We found out people weren't getting paid. The rumors of our burgeoning success were looked upon as just one more charade. More gigs got canceled, finances a mess. We finally confronted him with facts. He acted crushed. In fact, he looked as though we had cruelly stabbed him in the back. We learned the line is thin between a lie and something that is not exactly true. And that when caution squares off with a desire, most times desire will beat it black and blue. He was our champion. He was a liar. We were so hungry we didn't see the signs. It wasn't just the Coke that made him blind to the subtle answers there between the lines. I still don't think the whole plan was conceived to line his pockets. No, I think he was addicted to the image of himself as hero and to gratitude and buzz. He loved to hustle well above all else. We hated the deception and the waste. And to this day, I think that he believed it crashed and burned because we lost our faith. So we were based out of Boston. We played all over New England. And we had a booking agent who had some connections in Maine. So we played in Maine a lot. We played Portland a lot. We played Orono. We played Waterville. We played Augusta. We played Camden, about 40 feet behind me, Mr. Kites. Oh, yeah. And we played Old Orchard Beach. A gig for 2 nights at a club by the beach, walking in sand with our sharp Cuban heels. Waves in the distance, stars within reach. A gig for 2 nights at a club by the beach. We're up from the city. They can tell by our speech. We smoke cigarettes by the Ferris wheel. Black leather jackets, club by the beach, walking in sand with our sharp Cuban heels. The gigs take us farther away from our home in Boston, a ramshackle house by the pike. We're looking for work with a fine-tooth comb. The gigs take us farther away from our home. From Portland to Amherst to Hartford we roam. We'll play any club that has sound and lights. Some nights we forget that we have a home in Boston, a ramshackle house by the pike. This week we headline a bar by the sand. Next week, New Haven, then Cambridge, then Maine. 40 minutes on stage, 4 hours in the van. This week we headline a bar by the sand. We're writing new songs, we're hatching new plans, but any momentum feels hard to sustain. Days run through our fingers, just like the sand. Next week, New Haven, then Cambridge, then Maine, then Beverly, Manchester, Worcester, Lynn, Methuen, Northampton, Somerville, then Boston, then Gloucester, then we start again. Beverly, Manchester, Worcester, Lynn. If we don't get some airplay, if the crowd starts to thin, we'll run out of money. We'll run out of will. Beverly, Manchester, Worcester, Lynn, Methuen, Northampton, Somerville. So everyone is heroes, particularly when you're playing a band. And one of mine was Pete Townsend, which was a good-bad thing. It was good because he was sort of a brilliant composer and lyricist and a wild guitar player. It was not such a good thing because of some behavioral issues. This is called Broken Guitar. He'd seen The Who 100 times on film, smash their gear before they left the stage. He couldn't tell. Was it glee or was it rage? A modern vestige of kill or be killed. One night during encore, while the feedback died, he spun his Gibson hard against the wall. The crowd went wild. He held the pieces high as if he were the winner of a brawl. Alone, he almost wept for what he'd done. He might as well have cut out his own tongue. So this one is about the club manager. This one provided me with a very big kick because it got read by Garrison Keillor, which is a surreal experience to hear that sort of thing. But this was included in Writer's Almanac, which was great fun. The irony of this particular poem, I think I can say, is that it was written from the perspective of someone who had to deal with the club manager, and now I've sort of become the club manager. Be careful what you do when you write poems. The club manager. His office is behind the stage, behind a thick, scarred wooden door. A desk piled high with bills, receipts, a small safe bolted to the floor. Envious friends say, man, how sweet to be the guy behind the scene. He puts aside the payroll page. It's time to fix the ice machine. The overhead is suffocating. Electric, rent, insurance, beer, the mobbed up dumpster, glassware, liquor, mics, cables, amps, repair, advertising, ASCAP sticker, bar staff, wait staff, bouncers, sound. The owner talks of relocating. You might as well just burn it down. Bands talk of blood and sweat and tears. They want more money, better dates. He knows that if they don't sell drinks, there's no point to unlock the grates. Sometimes, worn out, alone, he thinks, I'm through. I can't last one more week. But reconsiders when he hears cheers, clapping, whistles, stamping feet. This is never enough. Forehead against the window. The van rolls through the darkness. You drink too much at gigs, and so you're rarely behind the wheel. The radio plays softly, the whiff of beer and gasoline, home to get 4 hours of sleep. You're not sure what to feel. You played a club in Beverly called Grover's by the train tracks. A headline on a Thursday, a surprisingly good crowd. A chance to win them over, a chance to get it right this time, a chance to keep your balance and not play too fast, too loud, but you let friends buy you whiskeys and everyone knows your brand by now. Instead of getting ready, you were hanging by the bar. Someone had to come find you. You threw everyone's rhythm off. You talked too much. You pushed too hard. You acted like a star. And maybe no one noticed. The people stomped and shouted. The owner comped you all a drink and said, hey, kid, nice show. And on your way to the dressing room, some pretty, sweaty lovelies gave you big-eyed smiles. Of course, that could have been the blow. But alone, you know the difference, and it makes you feel like a swindler. You wish you could be gracious, but the compliments all feel wrong, because you've heard the songs in your head sound like a symphony on a battleground, like a shiny new machine, or like a prayer, or a gong. You know the music's potential. It's worked its alchemy on you. You feel it like a red-hot coal that's lodged inside your chest. And once you've felt it burn you, and once you've prayed for that torment, that mix of love and sadness will never let you rest. So you didn't trust the power, and you didn't give in to the moment. You didn't love your audience or hit it out of the park. You didn't join your heroes or rise to meet the challenge. You didn't stay loose and funky. You didn't fan the spark. You didn't make them love you. You didn't make them love you. You didn't make them love you. Now you're riding home in the dark. This one is for a lot of my guitar player friends, but right now it's for my friend Matt Brown. This is called The Guitar Player. He waited for the bartender to close. His gear was packed and stacked beside the door. You can't enjoy the highs without the lows. The gigs were becoming something of a chore. The sameness had anesthetized the dream till he forgot what he was pushing for. The waitress poured herself a short Jim Beam. He remembered when she fronted her own band. With headphones on, she wiped each table clean. He left his cigarettes out in the van. He wanted to get paid, go home to sleep. Next weekend was another two-night stand. He waited for the bartender to close. You can't enjoy the highs without the lows. Oh, thank you so much. Well, I'm going to end with this one, but I would like to thank you for coming. That's so great to see you, symbolically speaking. And for everyone who's tuning in, nice going. So thank you for listening. Ellen Sanders up next. Don't forget to tip your bartenders and waitresses. And as every bouncer ever said, you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. This is called Life Amplified. Good Coke was like an angel's hungry kiss, a moment of electric clarity that made your timid pulse pound in your wrists with a burning sense of possibility. We couldn't bear to let that wildness pass. We didn't know it wasn't meant to last. On stage, we made a sound like a machine that threw off light and heat and made sparks fly. It ran on whiskey, hunger, and caffeine, distracting us from the daylight world outside. And though it was a hammer made of glass, we couldn't believe it wasn't meant to last. We were indestructible and young, propelled by our obsession and desire. The real part of our lives had just begun, even if our wings were catching fire. Our way was pushing hard and moving fast, a life that simply wasn't meant to last. Thank you.